Elijah Thornton dropped to his knees in the mud, cradling his youngest daughter's burning body against his chest. Hannah hadn't opened her eyes in 3 days. The doctor had ridden away this morning, shaking his head. "Ain't nothing more I can do, Thornton. Make peace with the Lord." But Elijah couldn't make peace. Not when Ruth stood in the doorway watching her baby sister slip away. Not when he'd already buried their mother in the hill behind the barn. "God," he whispered into his daughter's damp hair. "Send me someone. Anyone. I'll pay whatever it takes." Thank you for being here with me. Before we begin, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. And if this tale touches your heart, please subscribe and stay with me until the very end. The fever had taken hold of Hannah 4 nights ago. Elijah Thornton hadn't slept since. He sat beside her small bed, pressing cool rags to her forehead, watching her chest rise and fall in shallow, stuttering breaths. His hands that had broken horses built, fences buried a wife, now trembled as he squeezed water from the cloth. "Papa!" Ruth's voice came from the doorway, 11 years old, but she sounded ancient. "Is Hannah gonna die like Mama did?" Elijah couldn't answer. The truth sat in his throat like a stone. "Go check on the horses, Ruthie." "But Papa!" "Now!" Ruth's footsteps retreated. Elijah heard her crying as she went, and he hated himself for sending her away. But he couldn't let her see what he saw. Hannah's lips turning blue, her skin going gray, her tiny fingers losing their grip on his hand. The doctor from Bitter Creek had come yesterday. Old Doc Mercer, who'd delivered both his girls, who'd held Elijah's shoulder when Sarah passed. He'd examined Hannah, listened to her chest, and then stood up with that look Elijah had seen once before. "Lung fever," Mercer had said. "Bad one. Seen it take grown men in 2 days." "What can I do?" "Pray, Thornton. That's all any of us can do now." Elijah had stopped praying the day they put Sarah in the ground. But that night, alone with his dying child, the words came anyway. Desperate, broken, the prayers of a man with nothing left to lose. Morning came, gray and cold. Elijah stood on the porch, staring at the horizon like he could will help into existence. His 17-year-old son, Marcus, rode up from the south pasture, his face tight with worry. "Any change?" Elijah shook his head. Marcus dismounted and stood beside his father. They were built the same, tall, broad-shouldered, with the same stubborn jaw. But where Elijah had learned to hold his anger quiet, Marcus wore his on his sleeve. "I could ride to Fort Kearney," Marcus said. "Army's got a surgeon there." 3 days ride. She ain't got 3 days. "Then what, Pa? We just sit here and watch her." "Don't." Elijah's voice cracked. "Don't say it." They stood in silence. The wind carried the smell of coming rain. Then Marcus straightened his eyes, narrowing at something in the distance. "Pa, someone's coming." Elijah followed his gaze. A dust cloud rose from the eastern trail, not the direction of town. This was the old hunting path, the one that wound through Lakota territory. Nobody used it anymore, not since the wars. He went inside and came back with his rifle. The dust cloud grew closer. Elijah could make out shapes now, a single horse moving slow. Too slow. As it crested the ridge, he saw why. The horse carried 3 figures. Women. One slumped forward over the horse's neck, barely conscious. Another sat behind, holding the first upright. The third walked beside them, one hand gripping the horse's mane, her steps unsteady. They were Lakota. Marcus reached for his pistol. "Pa." "Wait." The group stopped at the edge of the property, maybe 50 yards out. The woman walking raised her hand, not in greeting, but in the universal gesture of peace. No weapons, no threat. Elijah walked toward them, rifle lowered but ready. As he got closer, he saw the blood. The woman on the horse had a wound in her side, the fabric of her dress soaked dark. The one holding her was young, maybe 16, her face streaked with tears and dirt, and the one who'd been walking. She met his eyes. She was maybe 30, with a face that might have been beautiful if it wasn't so exhausted. Her black hair hung loose and tangled. Her buckskin dress was torn, but her eyes, dark and sharp and fierce, held no fear. Only a desperate, burning determination. "My sister is dying," she said in English, clear accented but understandable. "We need water, shelter, one night. Then we go." Elijah looked at the wounded woman. Her breathing was wet, labored. Without help, she'd be dead by nightfall. "What happened to her soldiers?" The word came out flat. "They burned our camp, killed the men, took the children." Her jaw tightened. "We ran. My sister, she took a bullet so we could escape." "Pa." Marcus had followed him over, pistol still in hand. "We can't. They're what? Lakota. You know what they did to the Hendersons last spring? What they did to... These women didn't do that." "How do you know?" Elijah looked at the younger one, crying silently as she struggled to hold her wounded sister upright. At the older one, the aunt maybe who'd walked God knows how many miles on feet that were bleeding through her moccasins. And at the one who'd spoken. The one with eyes like flint and a voice like stone, who'd asked for water and shelter the way other people might ask for miracles. "Because I know." He turned back to her. "What's your name?" "Winona." "Elijah Thornton. This is my son Marcus." He pointed toward the house. "Bring your sister inside." Marcus argued the whole way. "This is a mistake, Pa. Soon as someone in town finds out, then don't tell anyone in town." "They'll find out anyway. They always do. And when they do, they'll burn us out, same as they did the Lakota." "Then I'll deal with it. Like you dealt with Ma dying, like you're dealing with Hannah." Elijah stopped walking. When he turned, his face was calm, but his eyes were something else entirely. "You want to say that again, boy?" Marcus held his ground for a moment. Then his gaze dropped. "No, sir." "Good. Now go get fresh water from the well. And Marcus." He waited until his son looked up. "These women ain't the enemy. The enemy's the sickness trying to take your sister. You understand?" Marcus didn't answer, but he went for the water. Inside, Ruth had already pulled out blankets without being asked. Elijah watched his oldest daughter help the young Lakota girl lay the wounded woman on the spare bed. Ruth moved efficiently, without hesitation, without fear. So much like her mother, it made his chest ache. "Papa," Ruth said quietly. "Her side is still bleeding." "I see it." The wounded woman, the young one had called her Adsila, moaned softly, but didn't wake. Her breathing rattled in her chest. Up close, the wound looked worse. The bullet had gone clean through, but infection had already set in. The flesh around the entry point was red, swollen, weeping yellow. "She needs a doctor," Ruth said. "Doc Mercer won't come. Not for..." Elijah trailed off. "Not for us." Winona finished the sentence from the doorway. Her voice held no bitterness, just the tired acceptance of someone who'd heard that truth 1,000 times. "I know." "Then how?" "I am a healer." Winona moved to her sister's side, her hands already pressing gently around the wound, assessing. "My grandmother taught me. Her grandmother taught her. I have kept our medicine for 20 years. She looked up at Elijah. "But I need supplies. Yarrow root, willow bark, and I need fire, clean fire. Ruth, get the stove going." "Yes, Papa." As Ruth hurried to obey, Winona's gaze shifted to the small bed in the corner, to Hannah lying still and gray beneath her blankets. "Your child." It wasn't a question. "Lung fever," Elijah said. 4 days now." Winona crossed the room. She didn't ask permission, just knelt beside Hannah's bed, and placed her palm on the girl's forehead. Her eyes closed. For a long moment she was silent. When she opened her eyes again, something had changed in them. "You pray for help," Winona said. "Any help." "I did. And here I am, asking for shelter, with my sister bleeding, my niece terrified, and no place left to go." She looked up at him, and for the first time, something like hope flickered in her expression. "Maybe your God heard you. Maybe mine heard me. Does it matter which? What are you saying?" "I am saying I can try to save your daughter. I cannot promise. The lung fever, it is cruel. It takes who it wants. But I have seen it beaten." She rose to her feet. "Let me help your girl and you help mine. That is a fair trade, yes." Elijah stared at her. This woman who'd walked out of the wilderness half dead with a dying sister on her back, who'd asked for one night's shelter and was now offering to do what Doc Mercer couldn't. "Why would you help us, after what soldiers did to your people?" "Because your daughter is 6 years old, and she does not know the word Lakota means something to hate." Winona's voice softened. "Because when you saw us on that road, you saw women who needed help, not enemies, not savages." She paused. "That is rare. It is worth something." From the corner, the young girl, Winona's niece, spoke for the first time. Her voice was small, trembling. "Aunt Winona Adsila is getting worse." Winona turned. Her sister's breathing had become a thin wheeze, and fresh blood was seeping through the makeshift bandage. "Your choice, Mr. Thornton. Quick now." Elijah looked at Hannah, at his daughter who'd stopped crying for water, stopped asking for her mama, stopped doing anything but lying there, slipping further away with each breath. "Save them both," he said. "Save them both, and you can stay as long as you need, forever if you want. I don't care what the town thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks." His voice broke. "Just please, don't let my little girl die." Winona met his eyes, and nodded once. "Mom." The next 3 hours blurred together in fire and blood, and the sharp smell of herbs Elijah couldn't name. Winona worked on both patients at once, moving between them with an efficiency that made Doc Mercer look like a fumbling amateur. She sent Ruth to the creek bed for specific plants, describing them in detail until the girl could picture them exactly. She had Marcus boiling water and tearing clean cloth into strips. She put the young niece Chumani, her name, was in charge of keeping the fire steady and the room warm. And Elijah, she put Elijah exactly where he needed to be. "Hold your daughter," Winona said. "Talk to her. Let her hear your voice." "She can't hear me. She hears. Sick people always hear. They hold on to voices like ropes in the dark." Winona pressed a poultice against Hannah's chest, something that smelled of sage, and something bitter Elijah didn't recognize. "Tell her about the first time she rode a horse, about her mother's smile, about the life waiting for her on the other side of this fever." Elijah gathered Hannah into his arms. She was so light. When had she gotten so light? "Hey, baby girl," he whispered. "Papa's here. Papa's right here." He talked. About Sarah. About the first time Hannah had taken her first steps wobbling across the porch right into his arms. About the pony he was going to buy her next spring. About how Ruth needed her little sister to wake up because Ruth was getting too serious, and Hannah was the only one who could make her laugh anymore. He talked until his throat was raw, until the words stopped making sense and became just sounds, a lullaby of desperation. And sometime around midnight, Hannah opened her eyes. "Papa." Her voice was barely there, a whisper of a whisper, but it was hers. "Papa, I'm thirsty." Elijah wept. By dawn, both patients were stable. Adsila, Winona's sister, had lost a lot of blood, but the infection was draining and her color was returning. Hannah had taken water, then broth, then fallen into a real sleep. Not the terrible stillness of before, but the deep healing rest of a body fighting its way back. Winona sat on the porch watching the sun rise, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee Ruth had brought her. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. Elijah sat beside her. For a long while, neither spoke. "That thing you did for Hannah," he finally said. "The medicine. The way you talked to me about what to say to her. That wasn't just healing the body." "No." "What was it?" Winona took a slow sip of her coffee. "In my language, we call it Wakin the sacred. The part of healing that is not about plants or poultices, but about the spirit. Your daughter was slipping away because she had stopped fighting. She needed something to fight for." She glanced at him. "You gave her that. I just showed you how." "I don't understand how you know English so well, how you know any of this." "Before the wars got bad, my mother worked at a mission school. She cleaned floors, washed clothes, but she listened, she learned, and she taught me." Winona's voice carried old pain carefully controlled. She said, "Know your enemy's words, daughter. It is the only way to survive them." "I ain't your enemy." "No." Winona looked at him, really looked the way she had on the road, like she was seeing something most people missed. "No, Mr. Thornton, I don't think you are." The screen door creaked. Ruth stepped out, still wearing yesterday's dress, her hair coming loose from its braid. "Papa Hannah's asking for you. And—" She hesitated, looking at Winona. "And she's asking for the nice lady with the pretty voice. She wants to say thank you." Winona set down her coffee and rose. But before she went inside, she paused. "Mr. Thornton, what you said last night about staying as long as we need. Did you mean it? Every word?" "Then I need to tell you something." She turned to face him fully. "There is a reason the soldiers attacked our camp. A reason they killed instead of taking prisoners. We have something they want. Something they will kill to find." Elijah's stomach tightened. "What kind of something?" "My sister Adsila. She was the keeper of our band's history. The stories. The sacred songs. But more than that." Winona paused, choosing her words carefully. "She knows where our people hid during the worst of the wars. She knows the paths, the caves, the places the army could never find. There are still children there. Elders. Families the soldiers think are dead. And if the army finds her here, they will burn your ranch to ash, and everyone in it." The weight of her words settled over Elijah like a physical thing. He thought of Ruth standing in the doorway, of Marcus, who was still young enough to have his whole life ahead of him, of Hannah finally breathing easy after 4 days of hell. Then he thought of Chumani, 16 years old, crying silently as she held her wounded mother upright on a dying horse. Of Winona walking miles on bleeding feet because giving up was not something she knew how to do. He'd been a soldier once, years ago, before Sarah, before the ranch, before any of this. He knew what men did in war, what they told themselves to justify it. And he knew what kind of man he wanted to be when the war finally came to his door. "Then I reckon we'd better make sure they don't find her." Winona studied him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face made the tension in her shoulders ease just slightly. "You are either very brave, Mr. Thornton, or very foolish." "Probably both, ma'am." The ghost of a smile crossed her lips, the first he'd seen. "That sounds like something my father would have said." The day passed in an uneasy peace. Hannah continued to improve, sitting up by afternoon and demanding more broth. Adsila woke long enough to drink water and squeezed Chumani's hand. Marcus kept his distance, but he'd stopped reaching for his pistol every time one of the women moved. Ruth had taken to Chumani like a lost sister. Elijah found them in the barn that afternoon, Ruth showing the Lakota girl how to brush down the horses. They were laughing about something, their voices bright against the quiet. "She's never had a friend her own age," Ruth was saying. "I mean, there are girls in town, but they're all mean. They say things about Mama, about how she died, about how Papa doesn't take us to church anymore." "What happened to your mother?" Chumani asked softly. "Sickness. Same kind Hannah had almost. The doctor said it started in her chest and spread to her heart." Ruth's voice went quiet. "Papa held her hand when she went. He didn't cry until after. He thought we were asleep, but I heard him. My father died too, in the attack. Chumani stroked the horse's mane, her movements gentle. I didn't see it happen. Aunt Winona pulled me away before I could look. But I heard. I heard everything. Ruth reached over and took her hand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. About your mama. Elijah backed away from the door, not wanting to interrupt. His chest felt tight, not with grief, but with something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of it. The trouble came at sundown. Marcus spotted them first, 3 riders approaching from the direction of Bitter Creek. He ran to the house, bursting through the door without knocking. Paw riders coming. I think it's Sheriff Warren. Elijah stood. Where are they? Half-mile out. Coming fast. Winona was already on her feet. We should hide. If they see us. No. Elijah shook his head. You hide, they'll search. They'll find you, and then it'll look like I've got something to hide. He turned to Marcus. Take the women to the root cellar. If things go bad, there's a door out the back that leads to the creek. You know the one. Pa, do it. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. He led Winona Chumani and a barely conscious Adsila toward the kitchen. Ruth moved to follow, but Elijah caught her arm. I need you here, Ruthie. You and Hannah. But Papa? Warren knows I've got 2 daughters. If only one's visible, he'll get suspicious. Elijah knelt to meet her eyes. Can you do this? Can you be brave for me? Ruth's jaw set, that stubborn Thornton jaw. Yes, Papa. That's my girl. Sheriff Tom Warren rode up to the porch with 2 deputies flanking him. He was a big man, thick through the chest and mean through the eyes. He'd held his position in Bitter Creek for 12 years, mostly because people were too scared to vote against him. Thornton. He didn't dismount. Word in town is, you've got some unusual guests. That's so. Elijah kept his voice easy. Word in town tends to be wrong. Doc Mercer says he came out here 2 days ago, saw your girl sick. Says you were desperate. Warren leaned forward in his saddle. Desperate men do stupid things. My daughter had a fever. She's better now. Huh? Warren's gaze swept the property. Mind if we have a look around? I do, actually. The deputies shifted. Warren's eyes narrowed. Now why would an innocent man refuse a friendly visit from the law? Because it ain't friendly and you ain't law. Elijah stepped to the edge of the porch. You're a man with a badge who thinks that badge means he can do whatever he pleases. But this is my land, my home, and I don't answer to you. The air went tight. Warren's hand drifted toward his hip. Then Ruth stepped out of the house, Hannah cradled in her arms. The little girl was awake, blinking in the fading light, her color still pale, but her eyes clear. Papa, who are these men? Warren looked at the girls. Something in his face shifted, not softer, but calculating. Thornton, I ain't got no quarrel with your family. But there's been reports of Lakota in the area. Dangerous ones. If you've seen anything, I haven't. If you've helped anyone, I said I haven't. Warren held his gaze for a long moment. Then he smiled, cold, thin, the smile of a snake. Well then, I guess we'll be on our way. He tipped his hat to the girls. Miss, little miss. He turned his horse and rode away, the deputies following. Elijah didn't move until they were out of sight. That night, after the women emerged from the cellar and everyone had eaten, Elijah found Winona standing alone in the yard. She was looking up at the stars, her arms wrapped around herself against the cold. Warren won't let this go, he said quietly. He's got a nose for trouble and a taste for blood. He'll be back. I know. I need you to tell me what we're really dealing with. All of it. Winona was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was distant. My people are dying, Mr. Thornton. not all at once, but piece by piece. Our land is gone. Our buffalo are gone. Our children are sent to schools where they're beaten for speaking their own language. She turned to face him. But we are not gone. Not yet. And as long as there are those who remember, who carry the old ways, the old stories, we never will be. And your sister is one of those people. She is the most important one. She carries the memory of our entire band, the ceremonies, the medicine, the history. Winona's voice hardened. The army wants to erase us. Completely. Adsala makes that impossible. That is why they tried to kill her. Elijah thought about what that meant. About the weight of carrying an entire people's past in your head. About what it would feel like to have soldiers hunting you not because of what you'd done, but because of what you remembered. If you need to go, I won't stop you. Once Adsala's well enough to travel. We cannot travel. Not yet. She is too weak. And even if she weren't, Winona paused. There is nowhere to go. The safe places I know Warren's men have been watching. If we run now, we run into their guns. So we stay. So we stay. She looked at him again, that searching look that seemed to see right through him. You don't have to do this, Mr. Thornton. You have done enough. No. Elijah shook his head. I've done what any decent man should do. That ain't enough. That's just the start. Then what is enough? He didn't have an answer. Not in words. But standing there under the cold stars with his daughters asleep inside and this fierce, exhausted woman beside him, Elijah felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. I reckon we'll figure that out together, he said. Winona studied him, and slowly, carefully, like a woman who'd forgotten how to trust, she nodded. Together then. 3 days passed without sign of Sheriff Warren. Elijah didn't trust the quiet. He knew men like Warren, they didn't give up. They waited, watched, let their prey get comfortable before striking. But life on the frontier didn't stop for fear. There was work to be done, and for the first time in longer than Elijah could remember, there were enough hands to do it. On the 4th morning, he found Winona already awake, standing at the well with a bucket in her hands. The sunrise painted her face in shades of gold and amber, and for a moment Elijah forgot what he'd come outside to do. You're up early, he said. I don't sleep much. She pulled the rope, drawing up water with practiced ease. Too many years of listening for footsteps in the dark. That's no way to live. No, but it's the way I've lived. She set the bucket on the stone rim and looked at him. Your son watches me when he thinks I don't notice. He still doesn't trust us. Marcus has his reasons. What reasons? Elijah was quiet for a moment. This wasn't his story to tell, but Winona deserved to understand. His mother. My first wife, she died when he was 5. Sickness took her fast, same way it almost took Hannah. He blamed himself for years. Thought if he'd been stronger, smarter, he could have saved her. Children always blame themselves. They do. And then he got attached to Sarah Ruth and Hannah's mother, and she died too. Another sickness. Another woman he couldn't save. Elijah rubbed the back of his neck. I think part of him decided it's safer not to care about anyone. That way it doesn't hurt when they're gone. Winona absorbed this in silence. Then she said, He is not so different from Chumani. She lost her father 3 weeks ago. Watched soldiers drag him away. She hasn't cried since that day. Not once. Maybe she can't. Maybe she's afraid that if she starts, she won't stop. Winona picked up the bucket. Grief is strange that way. It hides inside us, waiting for a crack to slip through. She walked back toward the house, and Elijah watched her go, wondering how a woman who'd lost so much could still carry herself with such quiet strength. Inside the house was waking up. Ruth had taken over breakfast duties, eggs and salt pork, and the last of the bread from town. Chumani sat at the table helping Hannah practice her letters on a slate board. The little girl's tongue poked out in concentration as she carefully formed each shape. C-A-T, Hannah announced proudly. That spells cat. Very good. Chumani smiled, and it transformed her face, made her look like the teenager she was supposed to be, not the haunted survivor she'd become. Now try dog. Marcus stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching. His expression was unreadable. Elijah moved to stand beside him. Something on your mind? She's teaching Hannah to read. I can see that. Why? Because Hannah asked her to, and because Chumani knows how. Elijah kept his voice low. Is that a problem? Marcus's jaw tightened. No, sir. Then stop looking at her like she's about to steal the silverware. I wasn't. You were. Elijah turned to face his son fully. I know you've got fears, Marcus. I know this is strange and hard and nothing like what you expected. But these women haven't done a single thing to hurt us. All they've done is help. For now. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus glanced toward the table where Chumani was now laughing at something Hannah had drawn. It means people don't just help for nothing. Everyone wants something. Maybe. Or maybe some people help because it's the right thing to do. Same reason I help them. And what if helping them gets us killed? The question hung in the air between them. Elijah had asked himself the same thing 100 times since Warren's visit. He still didn't have a good answer. Then at least we'll die knowing we did right, he said finally. That's more than most people get. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head and walked away, grabbing his hat from the hook by the door. I'll be in the north pasture. Fence needs mending. Take water with you. I know, Pa. The door banged shut behind him. Ruth looked up from the stove. He'll come around, Papa. He just needs time. I hope you're right, Ruthie. I really do. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Elijah was in the barn checking on the horses when he heard hoofbeats approaching. His hand went to the rifle leaning against the stall door. But when he stepped outside, he saw it was only a single rider and not Warren or any of his deputies. It was a woman. White, maybe 40, with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. She rode side saddle, her posture rigid, her face set in an expression that could have curdled milk. Elijah recognized her. Martha Holloway, the preacher's wife from Bitter Creek. Mrs. Holloway. He tipped his hat, keeping his voice neutral. Didn't expect to see you out this way. Mr. Thornton? She didn't dismount. I won't waste your time with pleasantries. Word in town is you're harboring savages on your property. Word in town is wrong about a lot of things. Is it? Her eyes swept the property, sharp and searching. Because I see smoke coming from your chimney at all hours. I see tracks in the mud that don't match your family's boots. And I see your boy riding to town for supplies twice as often as he used to. My daughter was sick, still recovering. Takes a lot of firewood to keep a sick room warm. Your daughter was sick 3 days ago. She's up and walking now. I saw her in your window just now playing with some Indian girl. Elijah's blood went cold, but he kept his face still. You've got good eyes, Mrs. Holloway. I've got righteous eyes, Mr. Thornton. Eyes that see sin, where others pretend blindness. She leaned forward in her saddle. Those women are wanted by the army. Harboring them is a crime against your country and against God. Last I checked, God didn't wear a uniform. Don't blaspheme. I'm not. I'm just saying that helping people in need isn't a sin. Far as I recall, that's exactly what the Bible tells us to do. Martha's face reddened. The Bible tells us to help our neighbors, our Christian neighbors, not heathens who worship false idols and murder innocent settlers. Have you ever met a Lakota? Mrs. Holloway sat down and talked with one. Or do you just believe everything you hear from men who've got reasons to lie? I don't need to meet them. I know what they are. No, ma'am. You know what you've been told they are. There's a difference. For a moment, Martha looked uncertain, like no one had ever pushed back against her before. Then her face hardened again. I came here as a courtesy, Mr. Thornton, to warn you. Sheriff Warren is gathering men. He's talking about coming back out here with enough force to search every inch of your property. She paused. It would go easier for you if you cooperated. Easier for me, or easier for Warren? For everyone. I appreciate the warning. Elijah's voice was flat. Now, I'd appreciate it if you got off my land. Martha Holloway stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned her horse and rode away without another word. Elijah waited until she was out of sight before he let himself breathe. That night, he called everyone together around the table. Even Adsila, who was well enough now to sit up, though she still looked pale and fragile. "We've got trouble coming," he said. "Warren's planning something. Could be tomorrow, could be next week, but it's coming." "Then we fight." Marcus spoke up immediately, surprising everyone. "We've got guns. We've got walls. We can hold them off." "For how long a day, too?" Elijah shook his head. "Warren's got the whole town behind him. We start shooting. We don't stop until we're all dead." "What's the alternative? Hand them over." Marcus gestured toward Winona and her family. "After everything they've done for Hannah, nobody's handing anyone over." "Then what, Pa?" Winona spoke before Elijah could answer. "There might be another way." Everyone turned to look at her. "Warren wants us because we're criminals in his eyes. Escapees. Property that ran away." Her voice was calm, measured. "But what if we weren't? What if we had protection that even he couldn't ignore?" "What kind of protection?" "Legal protection." Winona looked at Elijah. "If we were not just guests on your land but family, the law sees things differently. A man has rights over his household that even a sheriff cannot easily break." The room went silent. Ruth's eyes widened. Marcus's jaw dropped. Hannah, too young to understand, just looked confused. "What does she mean, Papa?" Elijah stared at Winona. She stared back, her dark eyes unreadable. "You're talking about marriage." "I'm talking about survival." She didn't flinch. "It would be a practical arrangement. Nothing more. But it would give us standing, make us harder to remove." That's not..." Ruth stumbled over her words. "Papa, you can't just marry someone you barely know. Plenty of people do on the frontier." Winona's voice remained steady. "Arranged marriages, mail-order brides, convenience unions. This wouldn't be so different." "It would be different because..." Ruth stopped, frustrated. "Because I'm Lakota." "No, because marriage should be about love, about wanting to be with someone forever." Winona's expression softened slightly. "Your heart is good, Ruth, but love is a luxury not everyone can afford. Sometimes survival must come first. Love, if it comes at all, comes later." Elijah hadn't spoken. He sat there turning the idea over in his mind. It was crazy, impractical, dangerous in a dozen different ways, but it might work. "If I did this," he said slowly, "it wouldn't just be on paper. You'd be my wife, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of everyone. I don't do things halfway. I wouldn't expect you to. And if something real grows between us..." Winona held his gaze. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or something deeper. "Then we will face that when it comes." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "This is insane. Pa, you can't seriously be considering this." "Why not?" "Because she's what? Say it, Marcus. Say what you really think." Marcus's face contorted. The words hung on his lips, ugly and familiar, but he couldn't seem to force them out. "She's a stranger," he finally said. "That's all. She's a stranger. Everyone's a stranger until they're not." Elijah looked around the table at Ruth, at Hannah, at Shumani and Adsila, and finally at Winona. "This family was built from strangers. Your mother was a stranger when I married her, Marcus. Sarah was a stranger when she came to care for you after your mother passed. Strangers become family. That's how it works. This is different. Only if we make it different." The room fell quiet again. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Finally, Adsila spoke. Her voice was weak but clear. My sister has spent her whole life protecting others, our people, our memories, our ways. She looked at Elijah with eyes that seemed to see right through him. If you take her as your wife, you take all of that too. The burden, the danger, the responsibility. I understand. Do you? Adsila's gaze didn't waver. She is not just a woman, Mr. Thornton. She is a keeper of sacred things. To marry her is to become a guardian of everything she carries. Then that's what I'll be. Adsila studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded and spoke to Winona in Lakota, a string of words Elijah couldn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Blessing, permission, warning. Winona answered in the same language. When she turned back to Elijah, her expression had changed. Still guarded, still careful, but with something new underneath. When? She asked. Soon as we can find someone to do it. The preacher in town won't agree. His wife was just here threatening us. There's a circuit judge who comes through Willow Springs every few weeks. Owes me a favor from years back. He'll do it quiet, no questions asked. And until then we prepare. Strengthen the fences. Stock up on supplies. Make this place as hard to break into as we can. Elijah stood. If Warren wants a fight, we'll give him one. But we do it smart. We do it together. He looked around the table one more time. His son still angry and confused. His daughters, one worried, one oblivious. 3 Lakota women who'd stumbled into his life and changed everything. We're all in this now, he said. Every single one of us. From here on out, we succeed together or we fail together. No middle ground. No one argued. The next morning, work began in earnest. Marcus threw himself into fortifying the property with a fury that surprised everyone. He reinforced the barn doors, dug trenches around the perimeter, and set up lines of sight from the house to every possible approach. He didn't talk much, but he worked harder than anyone. Elijah found himself watching his son with a mix of pride and concern. You don't have to prove anything, he said during a break. I'm not proving anything. Then why are you working yourself half to death? Marcus drove another post into the ground, his shoulders tight. Because if they come, I want to be ready. I don't want to lose anyone else. Marcus. I was wrong. Okay. The words burst out like water through a dam. About them, about Winona and Shumani and Adsila. I was wrong. What changed your mind? Marcus stopped working. His hands gripped the post driver knuckles white. Last night after everyone went to sleep, I heard crying, coming from the barn. He swallowed hard. I went to check. Thought maybe one of the horses was hurt. And it was Chumani. She was sitting in the hay crying so hard she could barely breathe. She didn't see me at first. She was holding this little wooden carving. A horse, I think. Looked like something her father might have made. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. She looked up and saw me standing there. I thought she'd be scared or angry, but she just looked at me, and she said, I'm sorry. I tried to be quiet. I didn't want to wake anyone. He finally met Elijah's eyes. She was apologizing. For crying. For grieving her dead father. Like she didn't have a right to feel sad in our house. What did you do? I sat down next to her, didn't say anything, just sat there. Marcus took a shaky breath. She cried for about an hour, then she stopped, wiped her face, and thanked me. Thanked me for not leaving. That took courage, on both your parts. It wasn't courage, it was just human. She's just a girl pa. A scared, sad girl who lost everything. Just like I was when I lost Mama. Elijah put his hand on his son's shoulder. That's all any of us are, Marcus. Just people trying to survive. Doesn't matter what color our skin is or what language we speak. Pain is pain. Loss is loss. Marcus nodded slowly. I know that now. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Marcus cleared his throat and picked up his tools again. We should get back to work. Lot more fence to build. Yeah, we should. But as they worked side by side, something had shifted between them. A wall had come down, and what replaced it felt stronger than anything they could build with wood and nails. Inside the house, a different kind of building was happening. Winona was teaching Ruth how to prepare traditional Lakota medicines, which roots to use for fever, which leaves could stop bleeding, which berries were safe to eat, and which could kill. Your knowledge could save lives someday, Winona said. Not just in sickness, but in times when there are no doctors, no towns, no help, but what you carry in your own head. Did your mother teach you all this? My mother, my grandmother, my aunts, every woman in my family back 7 generations. Winona's hands moved skillfully sorting herbs into small piles. We are the keepers. Men fight and hunt and protect, but women preserve. We carry the knowledge forward. Ruth watched with fascination. Will you teach Hannah too, when she's older? If she wants to learn. She will. She looks up to you already. Can't stop talking about the magic medicine lady who made her feel better. Winona smiled a real smile, this time not the guarded half-expression she usually wore. Magic is just knowledge that hasn't been explained yet. Your father understood that. It's why he let me help. Papa's different from most men around here. Yes, he is. Winona's hands stilled for a moment. He reminds me of someone I knew once, a long time ago. Who? A man from my tribe, a good man, kind like your father, strong in the ways that matter. Her voice went soft. He died in the first wave of attacks 3 years ago. I thought I would never meet another like him. Ruth hesitated, then asked, Do you think you could ever love my father? Really love him, I mean, not just for protection. Winona was quiet for a long moment. I think, she said finally, that love is not a single moment. It is 1,000 small choices made over time. I choose to stay here. I choose to help your family. I choose to trust your father with my life and the lives of those I love most. She looked at Ruth with something like tenderness. Those choices are the seeds. Whether they grow into love, that depends on the soil, on the rain, on whether we have enough time to tend them. I hope you do. Have enough time, I mean. So do I, Ruth. So do I. The days blurred together after that. Elijah sent word to Judge Patterson in Willow Springs and received a reply that the judge would come in 10 days' time. 10 days to prepare. 10 days to pretend that everything was normal while knowing that Warren could strike at any moment. But the strangest thing happened in those 10 days. Normal started to feel real. Chumani and Ruth became inseparable, working together, laughing together, sharing secrets the way teenage girls do. Hannah followed Winona around like a duckling, asking endless questions about plants and animals and the stars. Even Adsila, growing stronger each day, began teaching Marcus basic Lakota words, correcting his pronunciation with dry humor that made him actually laugh. And Elijah and Winona? They talked. Long conversations on the porch after the children were asleep. About their pasts, their losses, their fears for the future. My husband was killed in a raid when I was 22, Winona told him one night. We had been married only 2 years. I was pregnant with our first child. Elijah's heart clenched. What happened? I lost the baby. From grief, the healer said. My body couldn't hold on to life when my heart had given up on it. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Her voice was steady, but her hands twisted in her lap. After that, I decided I would never be that weak again. Never let myself love so deeply that losing it would destroy me. Did it work? No. She let out a soft, bitter laugh. Because then Adsila had Chumani, and I loved that child from the moment I saw her. And then my mother died, And I loved her more than I ever had while she was alive. Love doesn't ask permission. It just happens. Yeah, I know what you mean. She looked at him. Do you? Sarah Ruth and Hannah's mother. I didn't plan on loving her. After Marcus's mother died, I swore I'd never remarry. The pain wasn't worth it. But then Sarah showed up, and she was so alive, so full of light. She made the whole world brighter just by existing. What happened? Consumption, the coughing kind that starts slow and ends fast. She had 6 good months from diagnosis to... He couldn't finish. You buried her yourself. How'd you know? Because that's what you would do. A man like you wouldn't let strangers touch someone he loved. They sat in silence, letting the shared grief settle between them. We're both broken, you know, Winona said eventually. Shattered into pieces by people we lost. This marriage we're planning, it's not a fairy tale. It's 2 broken people trying to build something strong from the fragments. Maybe that's enough. Maybe. She turned to look at him fully. Or maybe it's the beginning of something we haven't imagined yet. Elijah held her gaze. In the moonlight, her eyes were dark pools, deep and mysterious, and somehow inviting. I guess we'll find out. I guess we will. On the 8th night, Sheriff Warren made his move. Elijah woke to the sound of horses, a lot of horses thundering toward the ranch. He was on his feet before his eyes were fully open, rifle in hand. Everyone up, he shouted. They're coming. The house erupted into controlled chaos. Marcus grabbed his pistol. Ruth hustled Hannah and Adsala toward the root cellar. Chumani appeared at Winona's side, a knife clutched in her small hand. How many? Winona asked, her voice calm. Elijah looked out the window. His stomach dropped. 15, maybe 20. They've got torches. The horses stopped at the edge of the property. In the flickering light, Elijah could see Sheriff Warren at the front, his badge glinting like a malevolent eye. Thornton, Warren's voice boomed across the darkness. Come out and face judgment like a man. Elijah stepped onto the porch. He kept his rifle lowered but ready. Judgment for what, Warren? For minding my own business on my own land. For harboring enemies of the United States. For hiding criminal savages. For betraying your own kind. Warren's voice dripped with contempt. We're giving you one chance. Send out the Lakota, and we'll leave you and your children alone. And if I don't, then we burn you out, all of you, together. Behind Warren, the mob shifted restlessly. Elijah could see their faces in the torchlight men he'd known for years. Farmers, shopkeepers, the blacksmith's apprentice. Ordinary people twisted by fear and hate into something unrecognizable. You know, Elijah said slowly. I've been thinking about what makes a man good, what makes him worth respecting, and I've decided it's not the color of his skin or where he comes from. It's the choices he makes when things get hard. Spare me the sermon, Thornton. I'm not preaching. I'm just telling you I've made my choice. These women are under my protection. They're part of my family now, and if you want to take them, you'll have to go through me. That can be arranged. Warren raised his hand, and the mob surged forward. But before they'd taken 3 steps, another voice rang out across the night. Hold it right there, Warren. Everyone froze. From the darkness behind the mob, a new group of riders emerged. 6 men on horseback, led by a figure Elijah recognized with a shock of relief. Judge Albert Patterson. And behind him, a squad of federal marshals. Warren's face went pale. Patterson. What the hell are you doing here? My job. The judge's voice was ice. Which is upholding the law, something you seem to have forgotten. These people are harboring criminals. These people are under my jurisdiction. Mr. Thornton sent word to me about your extra-legal activities. I decided to come early and see for myself. Patterson's gaze swept the mob with barely concealed disgust. What I see is a lynch mob threatening a lawful citizen on his own property. That's a federal offense, Warren. You can't. I can. And I am. Patterson turned to his marshals. "Disperse these men. Anyone who resists, arrest them." The mob began to crumble. Men who'd been ready to burn a family alive suddenly couldn't meet anyone's eyes. They shuffled away in groups of 2 and 3, leaving Warren standing alone with his deputies. "This isn't over, Thornton," Warren snarled. "Yes, it is." Elijah stepped off the porch. "Because tomorrow, Judge Patterson is going to marry me to the woman you wanted to drag off to hang. She'll be my wife. Her sister and niece will be my family. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it." Warren stared at him with pure hatred. Then he turned his horse and rode away into the darkness. When the last hoofbeats faded, Elijah felt his knees go weak. He leaned against the porch railing, suddenly exhausted. Winona appeared beside him. Her hand found his in the darkness. "You're shaking," she said softly. "Yeah, I am. So am I." They stood there together, trembling with relief and fear, and something else, something that felt like the first fragile shoots of hope pushing up through hard ground. "Tomorrow," Winona said. "Tomorrow." Neither of them moved. Neither of them let go. The morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Elijah stood in front of the small mirror in his bedroom, fumbling with the collar of his only good shirt. His fingers wouldn't cooperate. They kept slipping off the buttons like they belonged to someone else. A knock came at the door. "Pa!" Marcus's voice. "Judge Patterson's ready. Everyone's waiting." "I know. I'll be out in a minute." He heard his son's footsteps retreat, then stop. The door creaked open. "You look terrified," Marcus said. "I am terrified." "Want me to tell them you need more time?" Elijah finally managed the last button and turned to face his son. Marcus stood in the doorway, dressed in clean clothes for the first time in weeks. He'd even combed his hair. "No, if I wait any longer, I'll lose my nerve entirely." Marcus stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. For a moment, he just stood there looking at his father with an expression Elijah couldn't quite read. "I owe you an apology," Marcus said. "For what? For being a damn fool, for fighting you on this, for almost letting my fear ruin everything." He swallowed hard. "Chumani told me what Winona did for Hannah, the full story, how she stayed up 3 nights straight, barely eating, barely sleeping, just to keep your daughter alive. She's your sister too." "I know, that's my point." Marcus moved closer. "Winona saved my sister. She didn't have to. She could have taken her people and run the first night, found somewhere else to hide. But she stayed because you asked her to. Because she saw something in you worth trusting. Or because she had nowhere else to go. That's not why Pa, and you know it." Marcus put his hand on Elijah's shoulder. "She stayed because she's good, because her heart is bigger than her fear. And if you're marrying her, really marrying her, not just for papers, then you're getting a better deal than you deserve." Elijah felt his throat tighten. "When did you get so wise?" "Must have learned it from someone." They stood there for a moment, father and son, closer than they'd been in years. "You ready?" Marcus asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." The ceremony was small and simple. Judge Patterson stood in the main room of the house, a worn Bible in his hands. Ruth and Hannah stood to one side, both wearing wildflowers in their hair that Chumani had gathered that morning. Marcus stood behind his father, steady and solemn. Adsila sat in a chair by the window, still too weak to stand for long, but determined to witness her sister's wedding. And Winona. Winona stood across from Elijah in a dress that Adsila had somehow altered from one of Sarah's old garments. It fit her differently, looser in some places, tighter in others. But the pale blue color made her skin glow and her dark eyes shine. She looked beautiful, and terrified, and determined, just like him. "We are gathered here," Judge Patterson began, "to join this man and this woman in the bonds of matrimony. In the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of God, this union is sacred and binding." Elijah barely heard the words. He was too busy watching Winona's face, looking for any sign of doubt or regret. He found none. Only that same fierce resolve he'd seen the first day she'd walked onto his land. Elijah Thornton, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. His voice came out stronger than he expected, clearer, like some part of him had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. Winona, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Winona's eyes met Elijah's. For a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. The judge, the children, the danger waiting outside these walls. There was only her and him, and the impossible thing they were building together. I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I pronounce you husband and wife. Patterson closed his Bible and smiled. You may kiss your bride. Neither of them moved at first. The kiss was part of the ceremony expected traditional. But it was also the first time they would touch each other as more than strangers bound by circumstance. Elijah stepped forward. His hand came up hesitant and brushed Winona's cheek. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Her eyes stayed locked on his as he leaned in. The kiss was brief, gentle, more promise than passion. But when they pulled apart, something had shifted. The air between them felt different, charged with possibility. Hannah broke the silence by running forward and throwing her arms around Winona's waist. Does this mean you're my mama now? Winona looked down at the little girl, surprise and emotion flickering across her face. She knelt to Hannah's level. I will never try to replace your mother, she said softly. She loved you very much, and nothing can change that. But if you want, I can be something else. Something new. Like what? Like family. The kind you choose, not the kind you're born with. Hannah thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded seriously. I choose you, she said. You and Chumani and Adsala. I choose all of you. Ruth came forward, then her eyes wet. Me too. I choose you too. And then Marcus, standing back with his arms crossed, finally spoke. I reckon I'm outnumbered. Winona looked at him, waiting. Welcome to the family, he said gruffly. Try not to burn any of my cooking. I know it's bad, but we're stuck with it. The tension broke. Chumani laughed, a bright, startled sound that made everyone turn. She clapped her hand over her mouth, embarrassed, but the laughter kept bubbling out. I'm sorry, she gasped. It's just he's terrible. The cooking. I've been wanting to say something for days. Hey now, Marcus protested, but he was smiling. I kept you all alive, didn't I? Barely, Ruth chimed in. I think the horses eat better than we do. Traitors, all of you. Judge Patterson watched the family come together, his weathered face softening with something like satisfaction. I've performed a lot of weddings in my time, he said quietly to Elijah, but I don't think I've ever seen one quite like this. Is that good or bad? Good, Mr. Thornton. Very good. The judge gathered his things. I'll file the paperwork as soon as I get back to Willow Springs. As of today, Winona Thornton is a legal citizen of this territory, protected by all the rights that entails. Her sister and niece are listed as household dependents, which gives them legal standing as well. And Warren will find it much harder to act against a man's lawful wife than against 3 anonymous refugees. Patterson lowered his voice. But don't let your guard down. The law is one thing, hatred is another. Men like Warren don't care about paperwork when their blood is up. I understand. I hope you do. Patterson shook his hand. Good luck, Mr. Thornton. Something tells me you're going to need it. After the judge left, the house fell into a strange, quiet peace. Ruth insisted on preparing a proper wedding dinner, even though their supplies were running low. She recruited Chumani as her assistant, and the two girls spent the afternoon in the kitchen, filling the house with the smell of roasting meat and fresh bread. Marcus disappeared to check on the horses, giving Elijah and Winona a rare moment alone. They stood on the porch together, watching the sun begin its descent toward the western hills. The light painted everything gold and amber, and for just a moment the world felt gentle. "Strange day," Elijah said. "Yes. Not exactly how I pictured getting married again." "How did you picture it?" He thought about that. "I didn't really. After Sarah, I figured that part of my life was over, that I'd just raise my kids and grow old alone. And now I'm standing here with a wife I've known for less than 2 weeks, a family that's doubled in size, and a target on my back the size of Texas." He shook his head. "Funny how life works." Winona was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "In my tribe, there is a word, wotakuye. It means kinship, relationship. But not just between people who share blood. It means the web of connections that holds a community together. The bonds we choose, not the ones we're born with." Like what Hannah said. Yes, like that. She turned to look at him. "When I agreed to this marriage, I told myself it was just for protection, just for survival. But standing there today saying those words, it felt like more than that. It did for me too. Is that frightening? Terrifying. Good." The corner of her mouth lifted. "I would be worried if you weren't afraid. It would mean you didn't understand what we're doing." "And what are we doing?" "Building something from nothing. Making a family out of strangers and enemies and broken pieces." She looked out at the horizon. "My grandmother used to say that the strongest trees grow in the hardest ground. Their roots have to dig deeper just to survive. But once they take hold, nothing can uproot them. You think we can be like that?" "I think we already are." Elijah reached out and took her hand. She let him. They stood there in silence as the sun sank lower, their shadows stretching long across the dusty ground. Inside, Adsila watched them through the window. Chumani came to sit beside her aunt, following her gaze. "Do you think she can be happy here?" Chumani asked softly. "Really happy, I mean. Not just safe." Adsila considered the question. Her sister had always been the strong one, the protector, the one who carried everyone else's burdens. She had watched Winona bury a husband, lose a child, survive massacre after massacre. She had never seen her sister allow herself to be vulnerable. Until now. "I think," Adsila said slowly, "that happiness is not something that happens to us. It is something we build piece by piece from the rubble of our lives. Winona has more rubble than most, but she also has more strength. And Mr. Thornton, Elijah." Adsila smiled faintly. "He is a good man, broken like her, but good. And sometimes two broken things put together in the right way can become something whole. Is that why you gave her your blessing?" "I gave her my blessing because she deserves to have something for herself. For 20 years, she has given everything, her youth, her dreams, her heart, to our people. It is time someone gave something back to her." Chumani leaned her head on her aunt's shoulder. "I'm glad we came here," she whispered, "even with everything that happened. I'm glad." "So am I, little one. So am I." The wedding dinner was modest but warm. They sat around the table, all 7 of them now, a patchwork family that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Ruth had managed to stretch their supplies into something that felt almost festive. Marcus had found a bottle of wine hidden in the cellar, dusty and old, but still good. "To the newlyweds," Marcus said, raising his glass with only a trace of his former awkwardness. "May you have better luck than the rest of us." "That's a terrible toast," Ruth scolded. "It's honest. It's pessimistic. It's realistic." Elijah laughed a real laugh, deep and unguarded. The sound surprised everyone, including himself. "He's not wrong," Elijah said. Our luck has been pretty awful lately, but maybe that just means it's due to turn around. That's the spirit. Marcus drained his glass. Optimism through desperation. The Thornton family motto. Hannah, who had been quietly eating her dinner, suddenly spoke up. I want to make a toast too. Everyone turned to look at her. The little girl stood up on her chair, wobbling slightly, her face serious. To my new family, she said. Mama Winona and Aunt Adsila and Chumani. Thank you for making Papa smile again. He was sad for a really long time, but now he's not, and that makes me happy. The table went quiet. Winona's eyes glistened. She reached over and squeezed Hannah's small hand. Thank you, little one. That is the best toast I have ever heard. Hannah beamed and sat back down immediately, returning to her dinner as if she hadn't just cracked open every heart in the room. Ruth wiped her eyes quickly, trying to pretend she wasn't crying. Marcus stared very hard at his plate. Even Adsila, who had seen and survived more than any of them, looked moved. Elijah found Winona's gaze across the table. In her eyes, he saw everything he was feeling, reflected back the fear, the hope, the impossible tender thing growing between them. This is real, he thought. This is actually happening. After dinner, when the children had been put to bed, and Adsila had retired to rest, Elijah and Winona found themselves alone again. The night was cool, and they sat by the fire in the main room, close, but not quite touching. The flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. I should tell you something, Winona said quietly. About why the army wants Adsila so badly. About what she carries. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my husband now. You deserve to know what you've married into. Elijah waited. Winona stared into the fire, gathering her thoughts. 3 years ago, when the worst of the fighting happened, our band was scattered. Families separated. Children taken to reservation schools. Many of our elders died from violence, from sickness, from broken hearts. And with them died our stories, our songs, our history. But Adsila remembers. Adsila remembers everything. She has a gift, what your people might call a perfect memory. Every story our grandmother told her, every song our mother sang, every word of every ceremony she ever witnessed. It's all still there, locked inside her head. That's why they want her. That's why they want to silence her. Winona's voice hardened. The army doesn't just want to defeat us. They want to erase us. They want our children to forget their language, their customs, their gods. They want to turn Lakota into a word in a history book, nothing more. And Adsila makes that impossible. As long as she lives, as long as she can pass on what she knows, our people survive. Not just in bodies, but in spirit, in memory. Winona turned to face him. That is what you have agreed to protect. Not just 3 women. An entire nation's past. Elijah absorbed this in silence. The weight of it settled over him, heavier than he'd expected, but not crushing. Somehow knowing the full truth made things clearer, not harder. Then we'll protect it, he said simply. All of it. You say that like it's easy. It's not easy. It's just necessary. Winona studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and touched his face. Her palm was warm against his cheek, her fingers gentle as they traced the line of his jaw. I did not think I would ever feel this way again, she said softly. Safe. Seen. Like I could put down the weight I've been carrying just for a moment. You can put it down here, whenever you need to. I know, that's what frightens me. Her hand dropped, but her eyes stayed on his. I have spent so long being strong. I don't know how to be anything else. Maybe you don't have to choose. Maybe you can be strong and still let someone help you carry the load. Is that what you want? To help carry my load? I want whatever you're willing to give me. No more, no less. Winona was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled between them. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. This kiss was different from the one at the ceremony, longer, deeper, full of all the things they hadn't said and might never be able to put into words. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing harder. "This is real now," Winona whispered. "Not just paperwork, not just protection. It's been real since the moment I saw you on that road." "I know." She smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "I just wasn't ready to admit it." They sat together by the fire until the flames burned low, talking about everything and nothing. Their pasts, their fears, the children sleeping in the other room and the future waiting outside the door. Somewhere in those quiet hours, the last walls between them came down. And when they finally rose to go to bed together as husband and wife, neither of them looked back at the fire dying in the hearth. They had found something warmer. The next few days passed in a haze of cautious hope. The marriage certificate hung on the wall like a talisman, a legal shield against the hatred that still lurked beyond their borders. Warren hadn't returned, but his absence felt more threatening than his presence, like the silence before a storm. Still, life continued. Winona took over the household with quiet efficiency, organizing and improving in ways that made everyone's lives easier. She taught Ruth more medicine. She helped Marcus with the horses. She sat with Hannah every evening, telling stories from Lakota tradition that made the little girl's eyes grow wide with wonder. And she learned about the ranch, about the children, about Elijah. "You talk in your sleep," she told him one morning. "I do. Mostly you say names, Sarah, Ruth, Hannah, Marcus." She paused. "Last night you said mine." "What was I saying?" "Just the name, over and over like you were trying to find me in the dark." Elijah didn't know what to say to that, so he just took her hand and held it. Ruth noticed the change first. "Papa seems different," she told Chumani one afternoon while they were hanging laundry. "Lighter somehow, like he's not carrying as much." "Aunt Winona is the same. She laughs now. I haven't heard her laugh in years." "Do you think they're really in love? Like actually in love?" Chumani considered the question. "I think love isn't always lightning and thunder," she said. "Sometimes it's just two people choosing each other day after day, making the small decisions that add up to a life." "That sounds like something Winona would say." "She did say it, I'm just repeating." Chumani grinned. "But I think it's true anyway." On the 6th day after the wedding, Adsila asked to speak with Elijah alone. She was stronger now, able to walk short distances without help. But there was still a fragility to her, a sense that she was holding herself together through will alone. They sat on the porch watching the sun climb higher. "You have been good to my sister," Adsila said. "Better than I expected." "She deserves good." "Yes, she does. But deserving and receiving are not always the same thing." Adsila turned to look at him. "I want to give you something, a gift for what you have done for us." "You don't owe me anything. This is not about debt. It's about trust." She reached into the folds of her dress and pulled out a small leather pouch worn soft with age. Inside this are seeds, sacred seeds from a plant that grows only in the hidden places of our homeland. They have been passed down through my family for 7 generations. Elijah took the pouch carefully, feeling its weight in his palm. "What kind of plant?" "Medicine. Powerful medicine. If planted in good soil, tended with care, they will grow into something that can heal wounds no ordinary remedy can touch. We call it Wikoni, the life giver." "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because I may not live to see them planted." Adsila's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "The bullet did more damage than Winona knows. I have been hiding it, but I feel myself growing weaker each day. I do not know how much time I have left." "Adsila, let me finish." She held up her hand. "I am not afraid of death. I have lived long enough and seen enough that the darkness does not frighten me. But I am afraid of what I carry dying with me. The stories, the memories. Yes, and now these seeds." She closed his fingers around the pouch. Promise me you will plant them. Promise me you will teach Ruth and Chumani how to tend them. Promise me that this medicine will not be lost. Elijah looked at the small pouch in his hand. Such a tiny thing to carry so much weight. I promise. Adsila nodded, satisfied. One more thing, she said. My sister loves you. She may not have said the words yet, but I know her. I see the way she looks at you when she thinks no one is watching. I love her too. Then tell her, before it's too late, before life takes the chance away. Her eyes were distant now, seeing something far beyond the porch and the ranch and the endless prairie. We never know how much time we have. I learned that lesson too late. Don't make the same mistake. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Elijah found Winona in the kitchen. She was cleaning up from dinner, her movements slow and deliberate. He watched her for a moment, this woman who had walked into his life and changed everything. Winona. She turned. Is something wrong? No. He crossed the room to stand in front of her. I need to tell you something. What is it? He took her hands in his. Her fingers were warm, slightly damp from the dishwater. Real. Solid. Here. I love you. The words came out simpler than he'd expected. No poetry, no grand speeches. Just the truth, plain and unadorned. Winona's breath caught. Her eyes searched his face. Say it again. I love you. Not because you saved Hannah. Not because of the danger we share. Not because of paperwork or protection or any of the practical reasons we tell ourselves. He tightened his grip on her hands. I love you because you're fierce and kind and stronger than anyone I've ever met. I love you because you make me want to be better than I am. I love you because when I'm with you, the world makes sense in a way it hasn't since Sarah died. Winona was crying now, silently, the tears sliding down her cheeks like rain. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have since the moment you cut those ropes and told us we were free. I just didn't know how to say it. You just did. I did, didn't I? She laughed through her tears. It's terrifying. I know. And wonderful. That too. She stepped into his arms and he held her close, feeling her heart beat against his chest. Two broken people finding something whole in each other. Tomorrow the world would still be dangerous. Warren would still be out there. The future would still be uncertain. But tonight, in this kitchen, in this moment, there was only love. And that was enough. The peace lasted 12 more days. 12 days of learning each other's rhythms, of building something that felt more real with each passing hour. Winona woke before dawn to start breakfast. Elijah joined her in the kitchen, and they worked side by side in comfortable silence. Ruth and Chumani had become inseparable, finishing each other's sentences like they'd known each other their whole lives. Marcus had stopped flinching when Adsila spoke to him in Lakota, and had even started repeating the words back, stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds, but trying anyway. And Hannah had bloomed like a wildflower after rain. She followed Winona everywhere, chattering constantly, asking questions about everything. She'd started calling her Mama Win, a compromise that made everyone smile. But on the 13th morning, Adsila collapsed. Chumani's scream brought everyone running. They found Adsila on the floor of the bedroom, her body convulsing, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Winona dropped to her knees beside her sister. Her hands moved frantically, checking for a pulse, pressing against the wound that had never fully healed. No. Adsila, stay with me. Winona. Adsila's voice was barely a whisper. It's time. It's not time. I won't let it be time. You can't stop this. Adsila reached up and touched her sister's face. Her fingers left a smear of blood on Winona's cheek. You could never stop this. We both knew. I can heal you. I just need more time, more medicine. Elijah helped me lift her. Winona. Adsila's voice was stronger now, sharp with urgency. Listen to me. There is no more time. The bullet, it went deeper than I told you. It's been killing me slowly since the day it hit." Winona went still. Her face crumpled. "You knew. I knew. I've known for weeks." Adsila coughed and more blood came up. "I didn't tell you because you would have tried to save me. You would have exhausted yourself, neglected everything else. And in the end, it wouldn't have mattered." "How could you keep this from me?" "Because you needed to focus on living, not on watching me die." Adsila's eyes moved to Chumani, who stood frozen in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Come here, little one." Chumani stumbled forward and fell to her knees beside her mother. "My beautiful girl." Adsila touched her daughter's hair. "You are so strong. Stronger than you know. When I am gone, you must carry on. Learn everything Winona can teach you. Remember everything I told you. Our people live in your memory now." "Mama, please don't go." "I'm not going far. I'll be with your father, with your grandparents, with all our ancestors who came before." Adsila smiled, and despite everything, it was peaceful. "They're waiting for me. I can feel them." Winona clutched her sister's hand, her whole body shaking. "There's so much I never said. So much I never—" "You said it all, every day and everything you did." Adsila squeezed her hand weakly. "You protected me. You protected Chumani. You gave us a family when we had none. That is more than words could ever say. I can't do this without you." "Yes, you can. You've been doing it for years." Adsila's breath rattled. "Promise me something." "Anything. Promise me you'll be happy. Not just surviving, really happy. With Elijah. With this family. Promise me you'll let yourself feel joy without guilt." Winona couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears falling onto her sister's face. "And promise me—" Adsila's voice was fading now. "Promise me you'll plant the seeds. The Wikoni. It needs to grow here. It needs to take root in this new soil." "I promise. I promise, Adsila." "Good." Adsila's eyes moved one more time to Elijah standing silent and helpless at the edge of the room. "Take care of them. All of them." "I will," Elijah said. "I swear it." Adsila smiled. Her eyes drifted closed. "The sun is warm," she murmured. "Father, I'm coming home." And then she was gone. Winona's howl of grief echoed through the house, through the yard, across the empty prairie. It was a sound that came from somewhere deeper than language, raw, animal, ancient. Chumani collapsed against her mother's body, sobbing. Ruth pulled Hannah away, shielding the little girl from the worst of it. Marcus stood in the doorway, his face pale. He'd never seen death like this. Not peaceful, not expected, but intimate and terrible and real. Elijah moved to Winona's side and put his arms around her. She fought him at first, pushing against his chest, but he held on. He held on until the fighting stopped and she collapsed against him, her grief pouring out in waves. "I've got you," he whispered into her hair. "I've got you." They buried Adsila on the hill behind the house next to Sarah. It seemed fitting somehow. Two women who had loved and been loved taken too soon, now resting in the same soil. Elijah carved a simple marker, while Winona prepared the body in the traditional Lakota way. The ceremony blended two traditions. Winona sang the death songs of her people, her voice rising and falling in patterns that made even Marcus's eyes water. Elijah read from the Bible the passages about comfort and resurrection, about tears being wiped away, and sorrow being no more. When it was done, they stood in a circle around the fresh grave. Ruth held Hannah's hand. Marcus stood with his arm around Chumani, supporting her weight as she swayed with exhaustion and grief. Elijah spoke first. "I didn't know Adsila long, but I know what she did for this family. She trusted us when she had no reason to. She shared her knowledge, her stories, her daughter, and in the end, she gave us the greatest gift anyone can give. She let us love her." Winona stepped forward. Her voice was hoarse from crying but steady. My sister was the keeper of our people's memory. Every story, every song, every ceremony, she carried them all. When she died, I thought those things died with her." She looked at Chumani. "But they didn't. They live on in you, Chumani. In everything she taught you. In everything you will teach your own children someday." Chumani lifted her head. "I'm not strong enough." "You are exactly strong enough, because she made you that way." Winona placed her hand on her niece's heart. "She lives here now, forever." They stood in silence as the wind picked up, carrying the first hint of autumn chill. Then Ruth spoke, her young voice clear and certain. "Goodbye, Aunt Adzila. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for teaching me about medicine. Thank you for choosing us as your family." She sniffled. "I'll take care of the seeds, I promise." Hannah tugged on Winona's dress. "Is she in heaven now with my first mama?" Winona knelt down. "I believe she is in a good place, a peaceful place. And yes, I think she and your first mama are together. They're probably talking about all of us right now." "What are they saying?" "They're saying how proud they are. Of you, of Ruth, of everyone." Winona pulled Hannah into a hug. "And they're saying that we should go inside and have something to eat because that's what the living do. We keep living." The house felt emptier without Adzila. Her absence was everywhere, in the chair by the window, where she used to sit, in the silence, where her voice used to be, in the way Chumani kept glancing toward corners, expecting to see her mother there. But grief, as brutal as it was, couldn't stop time. 2 days after the burial, Marcus came running in from the fields. "Paw riders coming, a lot of them." Elijah grabbed his rifle. "How many?" "I counted at least 20, maybe more." "Warren?" "Can't tell yet, but they're coming fast." Winona appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were still red-rimmed from crying, but her jaw was set. "Get the children to the cellar." "Winona." "I said get them to the cellar, now." Ruth gathered Hannah without being told. Chumani hesitated. "I want to fight." "You will fight," Winona said. "But not today. Today, you survive. That's what your mother would want." Chumani's face crumpled, but she followed Ruth and Hannah down into the root cellar. The 3 adults, Elijah, Winona, and Marcus, stood on the porch and watched the dust cloud grow closer. "If this is how it ends," Marcus said quietly, "I want you to know I'm glad I was wrong about them. About Winona and Chumani and Adzila. I was a damn fool, and I'm sorry." "You already apologized, son." "I know, I just wanted to say it again, in case I don't get another chance." "You'll get another chance. We all will." But even as he said it, Elijah wasn't sure he believed it. The riders crested the ridge and thundered into the yard. Sheriff Warren was at the front, just as Marcus had feared. But the men behind him weren't the same drunken mob from before. These were soldiers. Federal cavalry, their blue uniforms dusty from hard riding, their faces grim and businesslike. And at the head of the soldiers rode a man Elijah had never seen before. Tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone used to absolute authority. Warren pulled up short and grinned. "Thornton, told you this wasn't over." "What is this, Warren? You couldn't handle us yourself, so you brought the army." The silver-haired man urged his horse forward. "I'll take it from here, Sheriff." His voice was clipped, East Coast educated. "Mr. Thornton, I'm Colonel James Whitfield. I have orders to search this property for 3 Lakota women wanted for questioning regarding an attack on a federal patrol." "There was no attack. That's a lie." "Whether it's a lie or not isn't my concern. My orders are to bring in the women. If they're not here, we'll search the property and be on our way. If they are—" He let the sentence hang. Elijah felt Winona stiffen beside him. "One of those women is my wife," he said. "Legally married certificate filed with Judge Patterson in Willow Springs. She's not going anywhere." Whitfield's expression didn't change. "Marriage to a white man doesn't erase her tribal status. She's still subject to federal jurisdiction." "Under what law?" "Under the law that says, I have 20 soldiers and you have 1 rifle." Whitfield's eyes were cold. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Warren laughed. See, Thornton, I told you. Should have handed them over when you had the chance. Shut up, Warren. Whitfield's voice cracked like a whip. I didn't bring you along to gloat. I brought you because you know the terrain. He turned back to Elijah. You have 30 seconds to produce the women or we search by force. Winona stepped forward. I am here, she said, but I am not the woman you're looking for. Whitfield studied her with interest. Explain. You want the keeper, the one who carries the sacred memories, the one who knows the hidden places. Winona's voice was steady, almost hypnotic. She's dead, buried 2 days ago on the hill behind this house. The bullet your soldiers put in her finally did its work. Warren's grin faded. She's lying. Am I? Then dig up the grave. See for yourself. But know this, if you desecrate her resting place, you will find nothing but a body. The knowledge you wanted died with her. It's gone. That's impossible. Someone else must know. No one else knows. Winona met Whitfield's eyes without flinching. She was the last keeper. When she died, our history died with her. Is that what you came for, Colonel, to dig up a dead woman and find out you're too late? The silence stretched. Whitfield's face was unreadable, but something flickered behind his eyes, doubt maybe, or calculation. And the girl, the keeper's daughter. She is a child, 16 years old. She knows nothing except the grief of losing her mother. Winona's voice hardened. If you came to arrest children for the crime of being born Lakota, then do it. Show everyone what the United States Army stands for. Warren shifted uncomfortably. Colonel, we didn't come all this way to... I said shut up, Sheriff. Whitfield dismounted and walked toward the porch. He stopped at the bottom of the steps, looking up at Elijah and Winona. I've been a soldier for 30 years, he said quietly. I've done things I'm not proud of, following orders that kept me awake at night, but I've never made war on women and children. Then don't start now. The orders I have. Orders can be interpreted. Reports can be written in many ways. Elijah came down the steps to stand face to face with the colonel. You could write that you searched the property and found nothing, that the woman you were looking for died of her wounds before you arrived, that there's nothing here except a rancher, his family, and a lot of dust. I could, but Warren would contradict me. Warren's a drunk with a grudge. Who's going to believe him over a decorated colonel? Whitfield was silent for a long moment. You're asking me to lie. I'm asking you to see what's actually in front of you. A family. That's all we are. A strange family, maybe. A broken family. But we're not enemies of the United States. We're not a threat to anyone. We just want to live in peace. And if I refuse, if I follow my orders to the letter, then you'll take 3 women from their home. You'll break up a family that's already lost too much. And for what? To prove a point. To satisfy Washington. Elijah shook his head. You'll have followed your orders, but you'll have to live with what you did, for the rest of your life. The wind blew through the silence between them. Behind Whitfield, the soldiers waited. Warren's face was red with frustrated rage. Marcus stood rigid on the porch, his hand on his pistol. And then Colonel James Whitfield made his choice. Search the property, he ordered, thoroughly. Leave no stone unturned. Elijah's heart sank, but Whitfield held up his hand before the soldiers could move. And when you find nothing because there is nothing to find, we will ride back to Fort Kearny and file a report stating that the individuals in question are no longer present at this location, presumed deceased or relocated. Case closed. Warren's jaw dropped. You can't... I am the ranking officer here, Sheriff. I can do whatever I damn well please. Whitfield turned to his men. You heard me. Search quickly and move out. We've wasted enough time. The search took an hour. The soldiers were professional, methodical, and surprisingly careful. They didn't break anything or rough up anyone. They simply looked, found nothing incriminating, and reported back to their colonel. When it was over, Whitfield mounted his horse and looked down at Elijah one last time. "You're a brave man, Thornton. Stupid, maybe, but brave. I'll take that as a compliment. Take it however you want." Whitfield gathered his reins. "For what it's worth, I hope you get that peace you're looking for. God knows someone should." He turned his horse and gave the signal to move out. Warren didn't follow immediately. He sat on his horse staring at Elijah with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes, it is." Elijah's voice was calm but final. "You've got no army backing you up now, no legal authority. You're just a man with a badge and a grudge. And if you come back here again ever, I won't wait for you to threaten my family. I'll put you in the ground myself." Warren's face went pale. He looked at Marcus at Winona at the house behind them. Then he turned and rode after the soldiers without another word. When the last hoofbeats faded, Ruth emerged from the cellar with Hannah and Chumani. "Is it over?" Ruth asked. "Are they gone?" "They're gone," Elijah said. "For good this time." Hannah ran to Winona and wrapped her arms around her waist. "I was scared, Mama Win." "I know, little one. I was scared too. But you didn't show it. You were so brave." Winona knelt down and held Hannah close. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you do what needs to be done anyway, because the people you love are worth protecting." "Is that why Papa stood up to those men?" "Yes, that's exactly why." Hannah looked at Elijah, then back at Winona. "I want to be brave like that when I grow up." "You already are, sweetheart. You already are." That night, after the children were asleep, Elijah and Winona sat on the porch. The stars were out more than Elijah could count, spread across the sky like scattered diamonds. The air was cool and clean, carrying the first hint of autumn. "It's really over," Winona said. "I keep waiting for something else to happen, another threat, another danger, but nothing. That's what peace feels like. It takes some getting used to." "I've never known peace. Not really. My whole life has been fighting, running, surviving." She leaned against his shoulder. "I don't know how to be anything else." "You'll learn. We both will." "What if I can't? What if I'm too broken to be happy?" Elijah put his arm around her and pulled her close. "You're not broken. You're just scarred. There's a difference. Scars don't make you weaker. They're proof that you survived." Adsila used to say something like that. Then she was a wise woman. Winona was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I want to plant the seeds tomorrow. The Wiconi. She asked me to, and I've been putting it off." "I'll help you." "Thank you." She tilted her head to look at him. "Elijah." "Yeah?" "I never thought I'd have this. A home, a family, someone who looks at me the way you do." "How do I look at you?" "Like I'm worth something. Like I matter. Not for what I can do or what I know, but just for being me." He kissed her forehead. "You matter more than you know. More than I could ever put into words." They sat in silence, watching the stars wheel slowly overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. And for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, the sound didn't seem threatening. It just sounded like home. The morning they planted the Wiconi seeds, the sky was the clearest blue Elijah had ever seen. Winona knelt in the small garden plot they'd prepared behind the house, the worn leather pouch in her hands. Her fingers traced the soft material worn smooth by generations of women who'd carried it before her. "Adsila held this every night," she said softly. "She'd take it out and just hold it. I never asked why. I think I knew." Elijah knelt beside her. "What did she say about planting them?" "She said they need good soil, sunlight, water. But more than that, they need intention. The person planting them has to really believe in what they're doing, has to want the medicine to grow." "Do you believe?" Winona looked at him, then at the house where the children were waiting at the window watching. "I believe in this family. I believe in what we're building here. If that's enough, then yes, I believe." She opened the pouch and poured the seeds into her palm. They were small, dark, unremarkable, nothing that would make anyone look twice. But when she held them, something shifted in her expression. A connection to something ancient, something larger than any of them. In my language, we say mitakuye oyasin. It means all my relations. Not just family by blood, but everything connected to everything else. The plants, the animals, the earth, the sky. We're all part of the same web. That's a beautiful way to see the world. It's the only way that makes sense to me. She began pressing seeds into the prepared soil one by one. When I was a little girl, my grandmother told me that every time we plant something, we're making a promise to the future. We're saying, I believe there will be a tomorrow. I believe someone will be here to harvest what I'm planting. Do you believe that now? I didn't for a long time. After my husband died, after losing the baby, after watching my people scattered and broken, I stopped believing in tomorrow. I just survived day to day, hour to hour. She pressed the last seed into the earth and covered it gently. But now, she looked up at him, her eyes shining. Now, I have something to plant for. Chumani came out of the house and crossed the yard to join them. She'd been quieter since Adsila's death, more withdrawn. But today, there was something different in her face, a determination that reminded Elijah painfully of her mother. Can I help? She asked. Winona held out her hand. Come, there's one more thing we need to do. The three of them stood around the small planted patch. Winona began to speak in Lakota, a prayer Elijah assumed, though he understood none of the words. The sounds washed over him like water, rhythmic and ancient. Then Chumani joined in. Her voice was hesitant at first, stumbling over syllables she hadn't spoken in weeks. But Winona kept going, patient and steady, and slowly Chumani found her footing. Their voices twined together, aunt and niece, the last two carriers of a tradition that stretched back generations. When they finished, Chumani was crying. Mama taught me that prayer, she whispered. When I was little, I'd forgotten the words, but they came back. They just came back. Winona pulled her into a fierce embrace. They live in you, Chumani. All the words, all the songs, all the stories, they're not gone. They're just waiting for you to remember them. I'm scared I'll forget again. Then we'll practice, every day if we need to. We'll say the prayers together, sing the songs together, until they're as natural as breathing. Winona held her niece's face in her hands. Your mother gave you a gift, the greatest gift she had. Don't let fear steal it from you. Chumani nodded, wiping her eyes. I won't. I promise. From the house, Ruth's voice called out, Is it done? Can we come out now? It's done, Elijah called back. Come see. Ruth and Hannah came running, with Marcus following at a more dignified pace. They gathered around the newly planted garden, looking at the unremarkable patch of disturbed earth. It doesn't look like much, Hannah said honestly. The most important things rarely do, Winona said. But give it time, water it, watch over it, and one day you'll see something grow that you never imagined possible. Like our family, Ruth said quietly. A few weeks ago we were strangers. Now look at us. Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. That's about the wisest thing I've ever heard you say, sis. I have my moments. Don't let it go to your head. Ruth elbowed him, and for a moment they were just siblings again, bickering, teasing normal. The sound of their laughter filled the air, and Elijah felt something loosen in his chest that had been tight for years. This, he thought. This is what healing sounds like. The weeks that followed were quiet, in a way Elijah had almost forgotten was possible. There were no more threats from Warren. The sheriff had been notably absent from town, and rumor had it he was facing questions from the territorial governor about his behavior. Colonel Whitfield's report had apparently raised some eyebrows in places where eyebrows mattered. The ranch prospered in small ways. The late corn came in better than expected. One of the mares foaled a healthy colt that Hannah immediately claimed as her own. Marcus finished the new fence around the north pasture and even started talking about expanding, adding more cattle, maybe some sheep. And the family grew closer with each passing day. Elijah found himself marveling at how natural it all felt. Winona moved through the house like she'd always been there, her presence filling spaces he hadn't even realized were empty. She and Ruth spent hours together in the kitchen or the garden, talking about things Elijah couldn't quite hear, but that always seemed to leave Ruth smiling. She taught Hannah the names of plants and animals in Lakota, and the little girl absorbed them like a sponge, proud of her expanding vocabulary. Marcus and Chumani had developed an unlikely friendship. He taught her to ride properly, not the desperate, survival-focused riding she'd learned fleeing from soldiers, but the easy, joyful riding of someone who had time to enjoy it. She taught him the basics of Lakota, correcting his terrible pronunciation with increasing exasperation. "You're saying, 'I am a potato,'" she told him one afternoon, barely containing her laughter. "The word for horse is completely different." "Well, how am I supposed to know they all sound the same?" "They do not sound the same. You just have ears like a—" She stopped searching for the English word. "Like a what?" "Like a man who has never listened properly to anything in his life." Marcus clutched his chest in mock offense. "That's the meanest thing anyone's ever said to me." "Then you have lived a very sheltered life." Watching them, Elijah felt a warmth spread through him. This was what he'd wanted for his children, not just survival, but joy. Not just family, but genuine connection. One evening, as autumn began to paint the prairie in shades of gold and amber, Winona asked Elijah to walk with her. They climbed the hill behind the house to the place where Adsala and Sarah rested side by side. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the graves. "I've been thinking," Winona said. "About what? About the future, what it looks like, what I want it to look like." Elijah